Taking a look at the founding of the Bennion Center is a good reminder that it takes all kinds of people with a whole variety of personal contributions that they can make. So I think of Lowell Bennion and his living the model of service that we go back to. And I think of Dick Jacobson and his wife Sue, who had the financial capacity to start the Bennion Center, but who also had the vision to see that what was possible.
I felt like it was important that the young students get the vision of community service along with their college education. That community service should be a part of their orientation in their life. So my hope was that through the University of Utah, with the help of Lowell Bennion and the example of his life and the sparkle of his personality, that we could do something that would help the students at the University of Utah get that vision of the value and the miracle of community service.
They had the means and the generous hearts to propose to the university, why don't we have a center similar to what Donald Kennedy has encouraged to come about at Stanford at the University of Utah.
Stanford had a program that they called the Haas Center for Public Service. And we got acquainted with that, and as we saw that, we thought, well, my goodness, I think that we could do something like this at the University of Utah, and the perfect connection for that would be Lowell Bennion.
Lowell Bennion is known by this community for giving service, for doing exactly his version of the community service that the center is expected to live. And so from the very beginning in time and from the very initial visit that somebody has with the Bennion Center, it's clear that what we value is what Lowell modeled.
I feel really fortunate that I was around when Lowell was there. We had a Lowell's Drivers Club that once a week one of the students of the Bennion Center would go pick him up and do whatever he needed to have done. And almost always he had a little notebook, just one of those miniature notebooks, and he'd say, let's go visit my girlfriends. And so we'd hop in the car with Lowell and we'd drive him to these widows' houses all over the valley. And some of these people hadn't had contact with anyone for an entire month.
Rather than just talk about the principles or the philosophy in the classroom, he was very much a person to roll up his sleeves and go out and go to work in the community and to take his students along with him to do that.
I remember one day walking into a woman's house, and Lowell had Parkinson's disease and it was progressed. And he used to kind of sit crouched forward a little bit with his hands together, and his hearing was almost gone. And so he'd lean forward and stare at those women with his piercing eyes that would go straight into their heart. And he would say, tell me about your day. And then he would sit there and listen. And there was one day that we visited such a woman, and I truly think she hadn't talked for a month to anyone. And she talked for an hour without stopping. And her voice was weak, and I'm positive he could hardly understand a word she was saying. And as we left her house, he turned to me and he said, I think she needed to talk today.
Well, I unfortunately never knew Lowell Bennion. But I love knowing that he was there and that it was a human being who started this. It was an individual in the community who placed such priority on this in his life, because I'm just speaking personally, I love feeling connected to the generations that came before me, and I love feeling that I can carry something forward.
His spirit is definitely there. That feeling, that spirit of service, and I think more than anything of just keep going no matter how difficult things may seem. And perseverance, that's the word, the perseverance. And I think that was something that was indirectly talked about him all the time, was just, you know, how, well, obviously his love of service and everything, but also his quiet way of doing things.
I think the past history of the Bennion Center is critical for our current students to have context for the service that they're doing today in these similar but different times, but to understand that they're part of a legacy that has gone on before.
It just gives me some kind of sustenance inside to know that, you know, I can continue the work that someone else started, and that maybe someone else can continue my work. And the more I learn about Lowell Bennion, the more inspired I am by his legacy. And I want my students to feel that also, that they're carrying forward the teaching that they have received and that has come before them, and that we're all part of this stream of life.
We were discovering that when you can use your brain with your service, when you can plug in the experiences that you're having into what you want to study for what career you want to enter, then the knowledge that you develop is just explosive.